All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if we can get everything going. Are we good? All right, we'll call our first meeting of the House Ways and Means Committee to order. This is going to be an organizational meeting today. We'll have no actual business before the committee. We're going to operate much as we have in recent years. Chairman Powell has set up an organization I thought that worked especially well, and so we'll continue very closely with that setup. As we begin today, we have a number of new members. First, Representative John Carson is our new Vice Chairman of the committee, so congratulations, John. Representative Casey Carpenter is new to our committee. Casey is a small businessman. Representative Scott Holcomb, an attorney, is new to our committee, as is Dr. Mark Newton, is new to the committee this year as well. Representative Bonnie Rich, tax attorney and professor, is new to our committee. And we have an experienced former chairman of transportation joining us, Representative Vance Smith, who's very familiar with the operations of the committee and the House. And so welcome to all our new members. We appreciate you showing an interest in joining this committee. As our returning members know, and as members of the audience know, this is a working committee. Did I miss Robert? Is Robert here? Oh, there he is. And Representative Robert Dickey, a former floor leader and business person, also new on the committee. Sorry for missing there for a minute, Robert. But as the members of the committee know, and those that have visited Ways and Means in the past, this is a working committee. The legislation we have affects every Georgian, so it's important we get it right. In a moment, we're going to talk a little bit about the committee rules and the subcommittee process, but as has been traditional in the past, the vast majority of the work is going to continue to be done at the subcommittee level. We'll have bills with 2 hearings at that subcommittee level, unless it's a very simple proposition or something that we're familiar with and have heard before. So as bills are introduced and assigned, then you'll want to spend your effort and your time at the subcommittee level with those subcommittee members. Make sure they understand your position on any issue, and we'll do our work as we have at that level. First order of business today is the adoption of our committee rules. And Brian is going to do a little more on this going forward, but those of you that are familiar to how we've operated in the past, the information is going to be available prior to our committee hearings online. So for committee members, if you have an electronic device, or those of you in the audience, even if you have a smartphone, if you'll go to the Ways and Means Committee website, on the lower right-hand corner of the website, you'll see a link to meeting agendas, and on that link, you'll find the committee rules. And the 2019-2020 committee rules are there for you to read. There are very few modifications at all, and I'll mention one or two, but nothing substantial is changing about the rules. We maintain a 7-member quorum for the full committee, a 3-member quorum for any of our subcommittees. As I mentioned before, typically measures will have 2 hearings in subcommittee. Members that have the rules before them, if you'll go down to item 10 and 11, the only minor modification, as you know in the past, committee officers, which would be the chairman, vice chairman, secretary, as well as the subcommittee chairman, serve on all subcommittees. The only modification we're making there is to include our immediate past chairman as well, to have that ability to serve on each of the subcommittees and chair that. Those of you who may not be aware, our immediate past chairman has joined us today. That's Jay Powell, who has some other role in the legislature this year, but we wanted to be sure that he remained fully involved in the activities of this committee. He's played such an important role over the last several years. We didn't want to lose that knowledge. So we've added the immediate past chair to all subcommittees. On item 14, it just talks a little bit about fiscal notes, and item 15 that during the session I'll be making that request for any legislation that requires a fiscal note. That's any legislation that has a significant positive or negative impact to the state revenues. So if you've got a matter that you believe requires a fiscal note, please get with me or Brian, discuss it with us, and we'll get that ordered if need be going forward. And if you look on item 22, this is in our rules, and this pertains to those that are going to bring testimony before the committee as well. If possible, and it's preferred, that you also submit your testimony in advance and in writing. So if you have comments on a particular measure, it would facilitate our ability to consider your comments and consider recommendations you might have. The sooner preclude you having the ability to testify at the committees or provide only oral testimony, but it certainly would help me to be able to refer back to the comments you have on measures before the committee and make sure that I understand them correctly, as other members of the committee I'm sure would appreciate that as well as we consider your comments. So I just wanted to offer that as a recommendation to try to help us stay best informed as we consider legislation. Do any members of the committee have questions with regard to the proposed rules? And if not, is there a motion with regard to adopting the rules for the 1920 session? Is there a second? Motion and second. All those supportive, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And our committee rules are adopted. Also on the Ways and Means Committee website, you will see a 1920 subcommittee list. We will continue to operate with 5 subcommittees in Ways and Means, that being ad valorem, which deals primarily with property tax issues, income tax, public finance and policy, and also sales tax. And most recently, we've also had a 5th committee that was titled Tax Reform. We're going to modify the work of that committee a little bit. We're changing the title to Tax Expenditure. You will see a list of proposed subcommittee members before you. I've asked David Knight to chair ad valorem, Bruce Williamson to continue chairing income tax, Ron Stevens to continue chairing public finance and policy, Shaw Blackman to continue chairing sales tax, and Chuck Martin to chair the Tax Expenditure Committee. I'm also going to ask Spencer Fry to be vice chair of ad valorem, Sam Watson to be vice chair of income tax, John Corbett to be vice chair of public finance and policy, Patty Bentley, if she would be vice chair of sales tax, and Penny Houston, who can't be with us today, to vice chair of tax expenditure. Just a little bit more on the subcommittee of tax expenditure. What we intend to do there, Chairman Powell began a few years ago in this committee, beginning to put measurement matrix in a number of the bills that come before us and sunsets. So as those bills come up for sunset, we intend to have this tax expenditure committee review those bills and see, for example, if there was a suggestion that a number of jobs would be created or a capital investment would be reached in the state, to review those to see if those metrics were met, and then to make a recommendation, for example, in expanding the program, expanding the sunset, or whether or not that particular item should sunset and expire. Each year, the Department of Audits and others publish a tax expenditure report, and that committee will also review that report and potentially make recommendations on various expenditures, credits, exemptions, and so forth that perhaps are not being utilized or not being claimed or are not reaching their intended purpose, and also make recommendations to allow those to expire or repeal as necessary. So if you have an issue coming before the committee, many of those issues will be self-explanatory. If you've got an income tax issue or sales tax issue, you should suspect that those will be assigned to those subcommittees. But if you have let's say a sales tax exemption that is looking simply for renewal or expansion, it will likely go to the expenditure committee if it's already been considered as, in this example, as a sales tax issue and perhaps been approved previously. If it's up for renewal or sunset to be extended, you will likely go to the Tax Expenditure Committee. The other members are listed there. If any member has particular heartburn about an assignment, please come see me and I'll listen to your claim and we'll decide whether or not there's a, but we've tried to balance the committees, both in numbers and in areas. I did meet with all the new members, save Dr. Newton, who was not available, and tried to get their input, and I've done the best that I could to try to assign them in areas that they've suggested they may have interest. Everybody may not have gotten everything that they requested, but again, if you've got some serious heartburn, please come see me. Keeping in mind in the rules that we just adopted, several positions serve on all subcommittees, so those names may not be listed here. For example, every subcommittee chairman serves on all subcommittees. So again, Chairman Williamson, who chairs income tax, you won't see his name on the other subcommittees, but he is a member of all subcommittees. The same is true for all committee officers. Leader Trammell serves by committee rules we just adopted on all subcommittees as a voting member of every subcommittee. So his name isn't listed, but the rules we adopted, he is a member of all subcommittees of the Ways and Means Committee. So just keep that in mind too, as you have an issue and you want to speak to members of a particular subcommittee. The membership of those subcommittees is greater than the names printed on your subcommittee list, and that list is going to remain on the Ways and Means website, so don't feel like you have to memorize or jot down names. It's going to be permanently listed there. You'll be able to refer back to it whenever you need. And on the bottom of that subcommittee list, we've listed those ex officio members of all the subcommittees, just so you'll be clear. Any member of the committee have questions or comments about the proposed subcommittees, how they'll operate, and the makeup? Seeing none, I'll presume that that's how we'll operate going forward this session and next with our subcommittee makeup. The next item of business is, we've kind of touched on it briefly, but we've attempted over the last year or two to bring Ways and Means to a more paperless operation. As those of you who are familiar with the committee know that it's a large committee, approximately 30 members. The bills can often be detailed, and it's not unusual to have 15 and 20 page bills. So to try to make paper copies for all members, to try to make paper copies when there's a revision or a substitute can be very laborious and makes for a lot of paper shuffling. So we've attempted the last couple of years to move to a paperless system, and we're going to continue to try to do that. At this moment, I'm going to ask Brian Groom, our policy analyst, if he'll kind of walk us through how the committee is going to operate from a paperless standpoint, and then Laura is going to drive the computer from the podium, I believe. So Brian?
Yeah. Thank you. I think part
Thank you, Brian.
signup.house.ga.gov.
And perhaps we'll put, we should maybe put that information on just this page as well, in case people forget to sign up. But it's also important, as y'all recall, as we get rolling in subcommittee meetings, and I should say we're going to try this year to follow as we have in the past few years. I believe on Tuesdays we're going to try to schedule public policy and tax expenditure, and Wednesdays ad valorem sales and income, and they will try to roll back to back to back. So one of the other reasons why it's important for you to sign up and get your contact information is you may come and testify about a bill at one of our early hearings, and the members don't move. That hearing concludes and another hearing starts. Well, I may be very interested in your testimony. I want to follow up with you, but we've got, meeting after meeting after meeting and person after person offering testimony. So it helps the committee too to be able to go to Brian and say, hey, that first hearing, who was the gentleman or the lady that spoke, and put us in touch with you. So it's designed to aid you in making sure that we fully understand the information you're bringing to the committee. And at the end of the day, that's what we're most concerned about. And all right, Brian.
One thing Chairman Harrell just reminded me of is when he said he wanted your phone number to call you. When you sign on to speak to a bill, you can check that you want updates on this bill. So if you say you're interested in a particular bill and it shows up on a meeting agenda, you can get a text to your phone about this bill is on an agenda for 3 o'clock today. And that'll let you know as soon as we put meetings on, then you have a alert to say, here it is. So.
Representative Beasley Teague, are you number 4?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to know when we have to have this computer to get that information for when they sign up and what they're going to say and stuff like that.
No, ma'am.
what do you have to
Any device that has access to the internet, you could access through the Ways and Means website. And in fact, we do not have enough Ways and Means Committee iPads for everyone. So the preference is to get comfortable with your own electronic device and to go to the website and look at it and become familiar with it. And the preference would be to come with your own device, because Brian and Laura are going to load these agendas and this information sometime before the meeting begins. We're going to try to have it at least 30 minutes before the meeting begins. So if you're in your office prepping for the meeting on your own device, you can prepare and see what's coming and try to get you a little further out in advance than just walking into the meeting and being handed an iPad. Now, we do have iPads. We will continue to have iPads in the committee room. If you need one, we'll furnish one to you. But if you have another device that you use and comfortable with, you should be able to get all the same information on your laptop or your own iPad. Or again, you can do it on a smartphone. It's a small screen. But anything that gets internet access.
Well, will I make my changes on the bills? I mean, okay, I'm a paper person.
Mhm.
So I'll make changes according to what people have said or whatnot.
Right.
Where will I put those changes?
So on your own, you can do it on either device, the iPad or your own. But on your own, when you bring up a bill, you can save it in a manner where so I got one of these cool little pens, and you can just make notes on the bills and strike through and then save it to yourself. If you're using the iPad in the Ways and Means office, the one that we've been furnishing in the past, it's my understanding when you open the edit function and write on it, then you have to email it to yourself. Is that correct? So it takes an extra step if you're going to use the iPad in the Ways and Means office. But if you're using your own device, you should be able to open it, edit it, save it on your own device, and then you'll have all your notes handy.
Okay. I like paper. There's something about it because I can bring it to you. But y'all gonna have something in the office, won't you?
We will. We
no
will.
paper?
And again, even in advance of the meeting, you could open it up in your Capitol office and just print it.
I just wish this was on the committee I had. It would help me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing she said, back to the sign up sheet, the only people that can see who signed up is on my screen. Everybody can't see that on the sign up. So it'll be, the chairman will see it, but everybody's not able to see who has signed up.
So we won't get those numbers.
No.
Any other questions with regard to our attempt to be as paperless as possible and how we're going to navigate through that? All right. Any other closing comments for our organizational meeting from any member? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming.